Hi, I think it's time that we tackle some of the worst games that the PC have ever seen. Because the shit nuggets, while not polish worthy, are definitely deserving a short sniff. So, let's jump straight in. Extreme Paintbrawl is easily one of the worst games ever made. Well, it shouldn't come as a surprise in a video like this one, but it's something else, trust me. Let's start by giving it a chance, however, and talking about what it is, or should be. Well, it's supposedly a paintball simulator which brings the ever-exciting team sport to the screens of our home PCs. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that paintball as a sport was created to bring the excitement of real-life combat and/or those war-based PC shooters to the masses in real life, with all the blood pressure-raising fun and no risk of losing life, limbs or getting wounded. So, taking that already stripped-down version of the real thing and removing the only fun part of running around hiding and hunting down the opposing team sounds like a recipe for extreme failure. And yes, that's the only correct way of using the word extreme with this game. Even if it was advertised as the non-violent 3D shooter, I wouldn't call it a shooter at all. Oh no, it's a torture tool used to induce strokes and heart attacks in those who never had these or any underlying conditions that could cause them. Anyway, Extreme Paintbrawl features 3 identical but differently named game modes. Cause 2 weeks is not a lot, and that's as long as it took to create this nightmare. So, first is Season. As if anyone would wanna play this dirt for longer than 5 minutes. But it's there and available a mere click away. Then there's Single Game Mode, which is probably the only one I'd risk saying you could try, cause it won't take you too long and you'll get plenty enough reasons to uninstall this straight after. And finally, Practice, which is just the best thing ever, like in existence, cause it literally seems like a practice. Walking practice, that is. For those who'd never played an FPS or laid their hands on a keyboard to learn how to move around the 2.5D environment. Well, in practice it's you and no one and nothing else. No targets, no enemies, just you and a boring ass map. But let's assume for a second that you're an adventurous and brave fellow and wanna play a whole season, okay? So, you get to pick 8 players for your team and play in series of matches in a sorta championship mode. It's always 8 versus 8 and you score points by either shooting the opponent or capturing their flag. When the character you control is shot and removed from the match, you are automatically given a control of another. And that's it. There's really no variety or any objectives here. What's even more interesting is that the people who've made Extreme Dirtball most likely never went paintballing themselves, as not a single of the maps included looks even remotely similar to a real paintball field. They seem to be quickly put together out of random assets, stamped with a stamp of shit nugget approval and thrown in a game to rush its release as soon as possible. Well, that's not all, I'm afraid, cause even if all that was the way it is, Extreme Paintbrawl could still be somewhat playable if the AI was decent. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. But the devs must have been out of touch with reality when they decided that releasing a game in which half of your team can be defeated by the doorway or a wall, as opposed to the enemy team. Just standing there, stopped in their tracks by an invisible pixel and unable to move, shoot or even crawl. Terrible, ain't it? What if I told you that from time to time it can happen in an open field too? Or that they can shoot around you from like 10 feet and never once land a hit for like a dozen or 2 of shots, and in the same time, same opponent, 2 minutes later can put down your entire team one by one. The consistency of skills of AI controlled teammates, be it yours or the opponent's, is non-existent. Or extreme, that fits too. Maybe that's where the title is coming from. But as we all know, paintball is a team sport, right? So, naturally, it can be played in multiplayer. And guess what? Extreme Paintbrawl can too. Only it can't really. Cause the multiplayer code that was responsible for it, more often than not, did not work at all. Committing digital suicide to spare other people the pain of having to experience this trash. Leaving you alone with this awful abomination to play against the enemies more stupid than most cats and dogs are. But nowhere near as lovable. Remember when digitized graphics and FMVs were all the rage and games offering close to no substance at all, banking on cheap videos and blunt flat storylines kept releasing one after another, just to grab a piece of the soon-to-be non-existent pie? Well, I give you one of the worst. Psycho Killer, an interactive movie type of a point-and-click adventure game, with quote marks around that interactive part of it and even bigger ones around the adventure. It's a truly terrible port of Amiga CD-TV's original for DOS. For the most part, it comprises of series of poorly digitized low-color and extreme compression low-resolution images with an occasional, even more smudged and unreadable movie clip here and there. Keeping the same low quality, not to take you out of the experience. While most of the time playing, you get to click like a maniac all around the screen, seeking things that would produce any kind of a reaction from this god-awful software, from time to time you're given literally a second at most to react to an unexpected QuickTime event and respond promptly or face instant death and game over. So you'll be clicking and clicking and, brace yourself, even more clicking to push the story forward. And since nothing in any way indicates an interactive object, you better prepare to use that finger a lot. Worst of all, you can't take your hand off the mouse at all, cause if one of those QuickTime events show up and you miss it, it's back to square zero. And no one should have to suffer through this failure of a game more than once. It's worth pointing out though that if you play your cards well, so manage to click all the right things at the right time and miss nothing, you'll only have to do it for, I don't know, 10, maybe 50 minutes that it takes to complete it, all to be rewarded with a rather unsatisfying ending. But before we get to that, let me tell you what it's all about. Because if you try to make it out yourself from the grainy low frame rate video, I think something about Bigfoot, Yeti or Sasquatch may come to mind. And unfortunately, it's not the case, because it would have made for a much better and more interesting story. Also, I know that all three are virtually the same creature. Psycho Killer takes place somewhere in rural England. One autumn afternoon, driving around the countryside, you witness a titular body chasing a young woman out of her car and across the nearby field. Now, why didn't she drive away is beyond my understanding, but why did you decide to go after them and not call the cops is entirely on you. And yep, I'm blaming you for how trash the game's plot is. Anyway, you travel the tiny game world using arrows which indicate all the directions that you can move to at any given moment, from one boring ass scene to another. The only thing that you really have to do in Psycho Killer is keep pushing forward, seeking the right path, occasionally being ambushed by the killer to finally catch him and defeat him. Fingers crossed. There are no real puzzles in the game, and perhaps it's for the best, as any extra minute spent at it is an eternity too long, cause it exists in some kind of a time vacuum in which any second feels like hours. Funny thing, across your quote-unquote adventure, you'll use your machete that you start with and will arm yourself with a stick. Like literally a stick found in the woods. And it's that stick that you'll use to defeat the villain at the end. I'm sorry, I mean unarmed and powerless villain. Cause while through most of the game he can one-hit you, sending you into repeat frenzy, during the final encounter he'll lose his weapon and will no longer be able to hurt you at all. It's ridiculous. Tell you what though, and take it to your heart. At the very beginning of the game, just as the killer chases the girl away, you can turn the key in the ignition and drive away, ending the game then and there. And that is also precisely what you should do whenever you come across this post-product of Devil's Bowels evacuation kind of a game. Turn around and walk away. There are better things in life that you could waste your 15 minutes on. Horse Racing 2016. What a game. Before I tell you anything about it, I'd like you to know that I actually bought it for the best friend of mine on Xbox a few years back, because of course it released on anything under the sun and I've done it as a prank. We did get quite a big chuckle trying it out for a minute, because it's so bad you wouldn't believe. Let me tell you, or rather read verbatim what game's Steam page says about it. Horse Racing 2016 is most fabulous and entertaining game for everyone. Bold statement, especially that if you ever got to try it out, within literally a minute or so of quote-unquote racing, it'll become obvious that it's not a game for everyone at all, but one for no one. No one should be punished for living by having to play it. I mean, sure, you can double for a minute or two, like a buddy of mine and I did, but trust me, other than the initial laugh or two, that you'll no doubt get seeing it in motion, it's all pain and tears of disappointment. Anyway, let's carry on reading, I'm sure there's more gems there. If you want to feel real horse racing championship, now, how one can feel a racing championship, let alone horse one, I do not know, but if you do, then yeah, the game provides that exact feeling. In heaps, no less. Maybe it's all about the smell. That would kinda ironically make sense. I don't know. Show your desire and courage to play this game. I have literally no issues with this statement, it's spot on. Horse Racing 2016 really calls for courage and some kind of a twisted desire to play it on your own volition. I mean, you must really fear nothing to willingly sacrifice your sanity for this one. The game uniqueness makes you play this game for hours. Okay, now I understand where I was mistaken. I thought that someone would play it voluntarily, but it turns out that it's the game's uniqueness that makes you do it. It must have been that elusive uniqueness in the Xbox store that caught my attention and charged me to buy it ad hoc, because I would have never done it otherwise. You know what, if nothing else, at least I have peace of mind now, knowing that I'm not to blame for trying it out. You will love to play this game again and again. And you might. After all, it's not you who's making you play, it's powers beyond your wildest dreams. It's horse voodoo. Then the game lists all of these features, which may or may not be included, I've no way of telling. And don't worry, you'll never know either, as you'll never manage to play this video game crime long enough to sample it all. But it all ends on a high note. And it's get ready for real action, real adventure, real horse racing championship. And I'm ready, folks. How could I not be after all that? But first, a quick break for a word from our not sponsor, Horse Racing 2016. An ultimate, absolute, extreme, incredible and amazing horsing experience. Have you ever wondered how it would be to play a game that explains nothing? Not how it works, not the controls, not what to expect from it. And one that does not even mention hundreds of bigger and smaller bugs, or that it cannot be effectively played without the controller. Or even one that offers a subpar experience and wants to cash in on a very niche and hungry for games for them audience. And somehow, while having literally no competition, still manages to alienate them all, effectively ending up being made for no one. Well, you're in luck, buddy, and wonder no more, cause Horse Racing 2016 is just that and more. I mean, who doesn't love just pressing Alt and F4 after nearly each and every race to restart the game because your mouse disappeared without a trace and with no gamepad connected, you just can't pass the end race screen? Or who doesn't enjoy having their controls displayed with PlayStation's gamepad icons while using keyboard and mouse? Everyone does. It's part of the experience, kids. It's not a bug, it's a feature. HR 2016 will test your endurance, speed and skill, but most importantly, will. To live, that is. So, if you're a true Omega Chad, Hackerman, Sly Stallone or even Boo Boo, ready that gaming finger of yours too, as it will be you against the W, so prove your massive superiority by displaying your button mashing ability. I'd like to thank Horse Racing 2016 here for deciding on not being a sponsor of this channel, as I've plenty enough terrible games to play without them, and they may have ended up being the last drop. While playing HR 2016 on PC, most of the features listed on the Steam page will either be unavailable because of one bug or another, or they straight up broken. I mean, even something as simple as naming your jockey on a horse, that the game insists on, I must add, will revert to generic player and my horse after a race or two. And half of the supposed Steam achievements are not working at all. I mean, I've not tested them all personally, because you're not gonna see me investing any more time in this filth, but I've researched it quite thoroughly when it came to Steam issues. And after seeing the rest of it, I'm inclined to believe the statement to be true. So, tell you what, how about we end this game's summary by compiling my own and true list of features that should end up on Horse Racing 2016 Steam page. Terrible single button mashing gameplay mechanics that are as interactive and fun as is pulling hairs out of one's butthole. Chance to play as a worldwide famous jockey, player, and his multiple awards winning steed, my horse. Surprisingly adventurous progress path requiring inputs from numerous, often unavailable devices. Early PlayStation 2 era graphics with all the bells and whistles that they offered, so low polygon count objects, smudgy textures and jerky animation. Hours of fun playing any other games after sampling this one. On the first glance, HR 2016 may look like the best out of all three of today's games, but appearances are deceiving and it's the perfect example of that. Cause while Extreme Paintbrawl and Psycho Killer are uber trash and not worth a minute of your time, they are in fact games that can be launched and played from start to finish, regardless of how disappointing and empty feeling that experience may be. HR 2016 is such a dreadful broken mess that even talking about it is annoying. So, I'm not going to anymore. Do yourself a favor and avoid it like the plague, and I'll see you in the next one. If you like the video, then great, cause all three of these are a nightmare in the making. The longer you play them, the higher the chances that your night will not be an easy one. But what do you think of them though? Let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise been long forgotten. So thank you.